There's one more race before the grand final in Dubai, and athletes are headed to Lake Las Vegas to fight for points in the T100 series. With 5 races in the books, this is the last opportunity for athletes to earn points, which will go towards deciding who becomes the first T100 world champion and who gets an automatic contract for 2025. The course in Vegas looks like the toughest on the circuit, with a hilly bike and an even hillier run. The athletes will be thanking the weather gods as the temperatures have dropped from the mid-30s down to the low to mid-20s, which takes the edge off. In this video, I'm going to run through every athlete racing and make my predictions. Let's get stuck in. After skipping London to get married, Paula Finley returned with a hectic schedule in September, heading out to China for Challenge Beijing, where she won on the run. She then finished 18th at the UCI Time Trial World Championships and is now coming fresh off 5th place in Ibiza, matching her result from 2023. She came out of the water with athletes you'd expect her to typically outswim, so with more focus on triathlon, I'm expecting her to swim better in Vegas. However, she was solid on the bike and run with top 6 splits in both and held off a charging Annie Haug on the run to make it into the top 5. She's been super consistent all season, finishing 4th, 6th and 5th over her 3 T100 races, which has her in the running for the top 5 in the series. With temperatures dropping, I think this course now really suits her. A few weeks out, I thought it could be a tough day for her in the heat, but she is a big podium threat now in Vegas. If she can have a better swim than Ibiza, then that will give her some space to attack the bike course, and she could be one of the best riders on this course. I'm excited to see what she can do and if she can get her first T100 podium of the year. It wasn't the dream return to middle distance racing she would have hoped for, but there were some good indicators for the remaining 2 races in the series. She swam in the front pack, which is the first time she swam with Taylor Knibb at this level. However, she seemed to struggle on the bike, going backwards fairly quickly. She lost a whopping 10 minutes to Knibb on the bike, which I still can't quite get my head around. She had the 15th fastest bike split and lost 2 minutes to Annie Haug, which has to be tough considering she finished 2 minutes back from her. She has to be at least matching Haug and Gentle on the bike in terms of pace to be competitive at the front of these races. The big positive takeaway from the race was her run. A 1:04 and the 4th fastest split was super impressive and shows a huge improvement from her previous middle distance racing. This could be down to her getting the hang of nutrition, or maybe she undercooked the bike slightly and is still figuring out the pacing of these races. This course could suit her a bit better than Ibiza. It's more dynamic and less time in the TT position. Giulia Molo gets her first call up to the T100 series in Vegas. It's been a bit of an up and down year with podiums in Pays d'Yeu and the World Triathlon Long Distance Championships, but she's coming off a tough day at the Ironman World Championships. She had a solid swim and bike, coming off the bike in the top 15, but completely blew up on the run, posting a 3:59 and sliding back to 31st. Ironman Hamburg is probably her best result at a top tier race, and that was regarded as one of the strongest female full distance fields of the year, and she came home in 6th after a strong swim bike again, but again she faded a bit on the run. She's a strong swimmer and she's led up multiple races so far this year, so we could see her in the mix of that front group if it's as big as it was in Ibiza. However, she may have a tough time on the bike and run. We are witnessing one of the most dominant streaks of middle distance racing we've ever seen. Taylor Knibb has been unstoppable over the past few years. She hasn't been beaten since the US Open in 2022, where she was only a few weeks into running. And since then, she's won 7 straight middle distance races, including 2 World Championships and 3 PTO T100 races. She's unmatched on the bike and is able just to ride away from the field, and her run continues to improve, where she's consistently one of the fastest runners. She was almost dropped in the swim in Ibiza, so she'll want to improve on that in Vegas, but we saw what she did on a hilly course in San Francisco, so expect much of the same here. I was interested to see how she'd perform in the heat, but with the women racing in the morning and the temperatures falling off, I don't think it will be much of a concern. Will anyone be able to step up and challenge her? India Lee rode really well in Ibiza but lost time on the run? Or will Annie Haug have had time to tune up the gears to chase Knibb down on the run? We could just be in for another display of dominance from the American. The Brit is back for more after making her T100 debut in Ibiza. The swim dynamics in Ibiza were slightly different to what I expected, with that group of 5 out front, then a group of 12 being led by Curran. Ideally, she'd have put more time into athletes like Lucy Byram and Emma Pallant-Browne, and given she swam with Taylor Knibb at Oceanside earlier this year, she may fancy her chances of latching onto the back of that front pack. She struggled a bit on the bike with one of the slowest splits of the day, but was able to hold off Thek on the run to come home in 15th. A solid outing in her debut, but I think she could crack the top 10 in Vegas based on some of her performances this year. The one concern I had was that she was coming from the UK where the weather started to turn, but luckily the temperatures have also dropped in Vegas, which should play into her favour. Spivey made her long-awaited T100 debut in Ibiza after being announced as one of the hot shot contracts back in January. She said she was hoping for a top 10 and just missed that, coming home in 11th. She was at home during the swim and led out that group of 5, but she struggled on the bike with one of the slowest splits of the day, losing over 10 minutes to Taylor Knibb, which is mad. She had a solid run but couldn't follow Flora Duffy, who was able to make it into the top 10 with a great run. So definitely lots to improve on, but Vegas is a course that should suit her better. Some more climbing means being 100% dialed in the aero position is less important, and she should be comfortable descending quickly. She'll be in that front pack again on the swim, and we'll have to see if she can make progress on the bike. Remember that the score from Ibiza is average with the score from Vegas for Spivey and Duffy to form a third race score, so Vegas is doubly important to improve her standings in the series. Marjolaine Pierre is coming off the biggest result of her career after taking 4th at the Ironman World Championships. She was so impressive that day, riding away from everyone in the early stages of the bike before being caught by Matthews and Philipp. When she got dropped, I thought she may have started to blow up, but she still ran a great marathon, only losing 1 position to Chelsea Sodaro to take 4th in her current hometown. She struggled in pretty much every other race this year, particularly in the T100 series, with a DNF in Singapore and 19th in London. However, this course might be the one that suits her the best. She's a great rider on the hills, proving that again in Nice. The question will be how she pulled up from the World Championships. Based on her current series standings and the PTO ranking, she's unlikely to get a contract for 2025 unless she can turn it round over these last 2 races. She's in the midst of the best year of her career, with the Ironman Pro Series bringing her back to the full distance where she's flourished. That huge win in Hamburg and podiums in Lake Placid, St. George and Chattanooga. She's coming off 9th at the Ironman World Championships, probably further back from where she would have wanted to be, but still a solid result that keeps her at the top of the Pro Series rankings for now, with Kat Matthews closing in. She kicked off her season in Miami and battled to 13th. I'm interested to see where she stacks up in this field. With a lot of new faces, she could look to break into the top 10. She's currently ranked 15th in the PTO rankings, so is in contention for a contract in 2025, but I wonder if she'd take it given her success in the Pro Series. The American picks up her 4th wildcard of the year, and it is slightly odd that there are several wildcards that have raced more than some of the contracted athletes. She backed up her selection in Miami and Singapore, finishing in the top 8 both times, and she was unlucky in London dealing with a puncher, dropping her down to 15th. Even with that finish in London, she's the top-ranked wildcard in the series, currently sitting in 12th, just 6 points behind Emma Pallant-Browne in 10th. Remember, the top 10 in the series are guaranteed a contract for 2025, so she needs to improve on her score from London to close the gap. This course is probably going to be the most challenging course on the circuit, which could play into Chura's hands. I can see her measuring her effort, letting everyone else get carried away on the bike, and making up places while the others blow up. After having to withdraw from the Ironman World Championships with a rip in her tyre, I thought she might come to Ibiza looking for redemption. However, she didn't seem to quite be at her best, which makes sense coming off the back of an Ironman focus block. She had a solid swim but just lost too much time on the bike and lost time to Derron and Gentle on the run. She was chasing down Paula Finley in the battle for the top 5, but fell just 16 seconds short and had to settle for 6th. An improvement on London, but you know she's not satisfied with that and will be wanting more in Vegas. Everyone was debating how she'd ride the climbs in Nice, so after missing that opportunity, I'm interested to see how she goes in Vegas. She's pretty much out of contention in the series unless she can put together 2 wins over these last 2 races, but she'll want to improve on her 16th in the standings. She's had a bit more time to tune into this distance of racing, so will we see her back in top form? It's been a tough year so far for the Canadian after back-to-back DNFs to start the year in Miami and Oceanside, and she's coming fresh off another DNF in Ibiza. She's shown flashes this year with 2nd behind Paula Finley and Mont-Tremblant and 6th in London, but similar to Jason West this year, she just hasn't been able to hang around on the bike to remain in contention at this level. I thought London could be the turning point to build on for the rest of the year, but then she struggled in Ibiza. We'll have to wait and see if she can rediscover her form in Vegas. Currently sitting 13th in the series and 14th in the PTO rankings, she's probably on the edge of securing a contract for 2025. A London-esque performance in Vegas and Dubai would go a long way to boosting her in the standings of both, and she'll want to get the better of Emma Pallant-Browne and Amelia Watkinson, who are both fighting for the top 10. The Brit backed up her selection as a hotshot, finishing in the top 8 of all 4 races she's finished. She did DNF in San Francisco, but was able to turn it around for a season's best finish in London, coming home in 5th. She's one of the best riders in the field, and we saw her in London break away from Kat Matthews and Laura Philipp, but was still chased down on the run. This is probably where she's weakest compared to the athletes she's finishing around. She did go toe-to-toe on the run with Paula Finley at Challenge Beijing after taking it to her on the bike, but she eventually lost out by 20 seconds, having to settle for 2nd. But the run is definitely moving in the right direction. She's currently 8th in the series, but with Charles Barkley and Kat Matthews not racing in Vegas, this is a great opportunity to close the gap or overtake them, and maybe even move up into the top 5, which would put her in a great spot heading into the grand final. Perez is someone I was not particularly familiar with before this race, so I thought it'd be useful to touch on her history in the sport so far. She's a former short course athlete who raced in the Rio and Tokyo Olympics, and she's been dabbling across the short and middle distances for a while now. She's most recently coming off a podium at 70.3 Cozumel behind Lisa Pertura and Vittoria Lopez, and she looks like a solid swim runner. The big challenge stepping up to this level will be on the bike. In her races this year, she's tended to get distance on the bike and not be within touching distance to put her run strength to good use. So we'll have to see where she stacks up on Saturday. India Lee rebounded from that disappointing Ironman World Championships with one of her best performances of her career. It's the first time we've seen her make that front pack, with the dynamics of having the Olympic athletes in there maybe working in her favour. She then rode away from all except Taylor Knibb and was able to hold off Ashley Gentle on the run to take her 2nd podium of the year. It's great to see her back up that win in Miami, and she now sits 2nd in the overall standings. With no Ashley Gentle in the field in Vegas, this is a big opportunity to close the gap and battle with Gentle to hold on to that 2nd place, with Taylor Knibb looking like she'll climb up to number 1. Her 3rd best result is 8th in London, so another podium in Vegas would bring her within 7 points of Gentle and make it a big battle at the grand final in Dubai. There was something about the way she talked about racing in Ibiza that just exuded confidence, so I hope that carries over to racing in Vegas. After stepping up to the pro ranks last season, she's continued to impress and is on a run of 3 straight wins, most recently taking the tape at Challenge Almere, improving on her 2nd place finish from 2023. She's typically performed better over the full distance, which tends to be the norm for age groupers stepping up at this point of their career, and she made the step up look seamless. She was 4th at Ironman South Africa earlier this year and took her first Ironman win in Sweden. She did also take the win at 70.3 Poznan, so maybe I'm doing her a disservice by saying she's better over the full distance. So I'm interested to see how she performs in Vegas. She's a bit of an all-rounder, so will probably find herself in the main chase pack. Then we'll have to see how long she can ride with the athletes in this field. There is definitely more of a mix of ability than usual, so I'm keen to see where she stacks up in her first time at this level. It hasn't quite clicked for Emma Pallant-Browne in the T100 series this year. A DNF in Miami and 2 10th place finishes in Ibiza and London is probably below what I expected from her. She's shown her class in the Ironman Pro Series over the 70.3 distance, where she picked up back-to-back wins as well as second behind Knibb in Oceanside. It was after that run of performances that she had her best T100 result, 5th in San Francisco, and she rode well on that hilly course. We've seen her perform better over those types of courses, riding better and being able to run better than other athletes off the back of it. A few weeks ago, with the temperatures in the mid-30s, I would have written her off as someone we've seen continuously suffer in the hot conditions. However, with the temperatures dropping and the women's race starting at 8 AM, then she could be a challenger in Vegas. She's currently 10th in the series standings, so will want to improve on one of her 10th place finishes to close in on guaranteeing a contract for 2025. However, if she missed out on the top 10, those 2 wins in the Pro Series will keep her in a strong position in the PTO rankings that should be good enough to get her a contract. A 4th wildcard for Thek, who is also coming off Ibiza. Like Kate Curran, I think she would have expected to come out of the water with more of a gap over many of the other athletes, so that immediately had her on the back foot and she struggled on the bike, losing time to everyone. She's a really strong runner, but she didn't quite manage to close the gap to Curran, but did make up a few spots to finish in 16th. Before Ibiza, she was 2nd in Zalmsi and clearly performs well on hillier courses, so Vegas should suit her better than Ibiza. In Zalmsi, she was also able to run really well off that tough bike, so we could see her moving through the field on the run, and she'll be looking to improve on the best finish so far in the T100 series, which was 12th in San Francisco. The Ironman World Champion hasn't had much time to celebrate with a quick turnaround to Vegas. She pulled out of Ibiza but made the trip across to support the athletes racing. She's coming off one of the greatest World Championship performances we've ever seen. She tore apart the bike and then dropped a 2:44 marathon off the back of it to take her first world title. It's clear that Nice has been a focus, but she's performed well in the T100 series alongside it. But with only 2 results so far, 3rd in San Francisco and 4th in London, she needs a solid result in Vegas if she wants to challenge for the top 5. Another podium would take her ahead of Finley, Matthews and Simmonds. We've seen her tear apart hilly bike courses, not just in Nice but also in Mallorca and San Francisco this year, so this might be the course that suits her the best. However, will she have had enough time to fully recover from that championship winning performance and rev up the engine for this comparatively short distance of racing? 4 weeks should be long enough, and I think she'll be in the mix for another podium. Vet has made the switch across from short course this year and has enjoyed some success in her first full season of middle distance racing, with 4 podiums over generally lower tier races. This will be her first opportunity at this level, so it'll be a good opportunity to see where she stacks up. At the moment, she's strongest over the swim and bike. She could fancy her chances to make the back of the front pack if it's as big as it was in Ibiza. If not, she'll be in the next pack back, likely with Imogen Simmonds and Thek. She's put down some really strong bike performances, and that will be the big test to see who she's able to ride with and how she can handle the dynamics, especially on such a tough course. Overexerting yourself early could seriously come back to bite you when you get to the run. This is generally where she's weakest on the run, averaging around a 126 over the 70.3 she's done. Coming to the predictions, it feels pretty straightforward with Taylor Knibb being the big favourite. I'd be interested to see her match up again with Julie Derron, but she has been so dominant over the last few years. In second, I've got India Lee to build on that performance from Ibiza and complete her T100 medal set for the year. I've got Paula Finley rounding out the podium. I initially had her further down, but I think she's one of the athletes that the drop in temperature benefits the most alongside Emma Pallant-Browne. 4th, I've got Philipp. She showed her strength on the bike in Nice, and I think that could translate nicely to this course. And in 5th, I've got Annie Haug. She's maybe the biggest wildcard in this field. I'm just not quite sure what version we'll get. I can't wait to watch these races on Saturday. Make sure you tune in, and if you're new around here, make sure you go and subscribe. It really helps. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.